absolute, powerful. It carries out and enforces the law, responsible for the overall governance of the state. The Group 4 will be discussing about the Article 7 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, which is the executive department. From merely reading to understanding each section through interactive discussion, we will be giving you that in the next 30 minutes. And we are live with our first ever podcast for this subject, constitutional law. And welcome to our listeners. This episode, we will be tackling about the Article 7 of the Philippine Constitution, which is the executive department. And we are so lucky today because we have here our guest, Mr. Elbert Louize Mangaliwan, who will be discussing the Article 7 for us to fully understand this section of our Constitution. Mr. Elbert, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Christine.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. What about you?
I'm good. And thank you so much for your time that you've given to us to discuss the said article. So let's just straight to the point, Mr. Elbert. Can you tell us what is the Section 18 of the Article 7?
Okay, Article 7, Section 18 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. The President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of all armed forces of the Philippines, and whenever it becomes necessary, he may call out such armed forces to prevent or suppress lawless violence, invasion, or rebellion. In case of invasion or rebellion, when the public safety requires it, he may, for a period not exceeding 60 days, suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus or place the Philippines or any part thereof under martial law. Within 48 hours from the proclamation of martial law or the suspension of the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, the President shall submit a report in person or in writing to the Congress. And then the Congress voting jointly by a vote of at least a majority of all its members in regular or special session. Right after that, they may revoke or such proclamation or suspension, which revocation shall not be set aside by the President. And then, upon the initiative of the President, the Congress may, in the same manner, extend or such proclamation or suspension for a period to be determined by the Congress, if the invasion or rebellion shall persist and public safety requires it.
How interesting. And I know that this section will be interesting because we will know the military power of the president. So, Mr. Elbert, for our listeners to fully understand what is the military power of the president, can you give us an example about this one, if this really happened in real life?
Yes, let's go back to what happened in the crisis in Marawi City. Began in the early afternoon of May 23, 2017. When a deadly encounter erupted between government troops and the 𝐬𝒃𝒃 group unleashed terror and havoc in the peaceful city of Marawi. They took over Marawi in the process of burning government facilities and even churches, causing a massive dislocation of Marawi, including the residents and deaths among troops and civilians.
Oh, I remember that. And how can we forget what really happened during the Marawi siege? So, we really thank as well our President Rodrigo Roa Duterte that time for acting as the Commander-in-Chief on the said siege in Marawi.
Responding swiftly to the incident, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte issued Proclamation Number 216 declaring a state of martial law and suspending the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus in the whole Mindanao, pursuant to the Section 18, Article 7 of the Constitution, were it not for the President's swift and decisive action in declaring martial law and suspending the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, the rebels could have established a stronghold at the heart of Mindanao.
I see. Thank you so much for that answer, Mr. Elbert. I still have a question though, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
What is the role of the Congress for this, Mr. Elbert? Does the Congress have a role on this?
Yes, acting independently, both houses of Congress examined the president's message and agreed no joint session was necessary. The Congress said there were no grounds to repeal Proclamation Number 216. It must be stressed that Congress has no duty or authority to affirm martial law. It can only abolish or extend it. Military rule is lawful and takes effect without the Congress consent. Petitioners have launched this case under Section 18 of the Article 7 of the 1987 Constitution to assess the validity of the Proclamation Number 216 factual foundation and annul it for absolute lack of sufficient factual basis.
I see. The Congress really has a role on this one. They are the one who will evaluate every information before it goes to public. So, Mr. Albert, is it really necessary to declare martial law?
With that being said, there are ample safeguards in the implementation of martial law. Such flexibility should not be any cause for worry. President Duterte's declaration and implementation of martial law is markedly different from that of former President Marcos. In his General Order Number 1, dated May 30, 2017, the President Duterte directed the martial law administrator and the martial law implementer to observe the limits of authority prescribed under the Constitution, of course, the laws as well as the rules and regulations. So that was ordered the constitutional rights of the called on the Commission on Human Rights to assist in the protection of the citizens' constitutional human rights. And aside from that, the Department of Public Attorney's Office lawyers, they help with human rights issues. These show that the government's intention of preventing martial law related to human rights abuses.
I see. So it's really it is necessary, but there are some factors to be considered. So, Mr. Albert, I believe that there are grave abuse of discretion, which is the appropriate standard to judge a declaration of martial law. I believe there are three of that. Am I correct?
Yes. First, when the President and the Congress act together in the use of their constitutional bestowed powers, due reference should be given to the resulting action which carry the weight in approval of two branches of the government. For example, the members of which had been duly elected by the Filipino people, and the declaration of martial law and its affirmation by Congress carry with them the imprimatur of the Filipino people. Second, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction over certiorari, prohibition, mandamus, quo warranto, and habeas corpus petitions. This is the petition for certiorari would be the proper proceeding to seek the Supreme Court to reject any proclamation and of martial law or suspension of habeas corpus. And third, that was the jurisprudence examines the exercise of commander-in-chief powers, including martial law powers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Albert Louize Mangaliwan, for discussing us this section 18 of the Article 7. So listeners, just stay tuned because that is just the section 18. I know that those explanations and discussions were really informative, but just stay tuned because we are still having our next topics, which is sections 19 to 23. So thank you so much, and we will be back.
All out of skips? With Premium, you get unlimited skips to pass on the songs you don't want to hear, even on mobile. So the next time you're looking for that perfect song to set the mood, you won't have to wait around to get more skips. Step back into the world of Premium and hear what you want, when you want. Tap the banner to learn more.
And we are back with our next topic in this same article, which is Article 7, the Executive Department of our Constitution. And we are so lucky this afternoon, listeners, because we have our special guest, who is very beautiful as well, Miss J.M. Talaid, also known as Judith Marie Talaid, who will be discussing and letting us understand what is the gist or what is the power of the president in granting amnesty. Miss JM, good afternoon to you.
afternoon, Miss Christine. You look blooming today.
Wow, and you look so ravishing as well. And we will go straight directly to our topic, which is the section 19 of the Article 7. Miss JM, can you elaborate to us or can you enlighten us what is stipulated in section 19 of Article 7?
Okay, so Article 7, Section 19, Executive Department of the Philippine Constitution stated that, except in cases of impeachment or as otherwise provided in this Constitution, the President may grant reprieves, or what we call postponing or condemning to a certain punishment or sentence on a certain date, commutations and pardons, remit fines, and forfeitures after conviction by final judgment. He shall also have the power to grant amnesty with the concurrence of a majority of all the members of the Congress.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Miss JM. So, it is included in the power of the president to grant amnesties, and I've heard granting amnesties in the news, in the television. So I know that there are some examples as well. And so, Miss JM, can you give us an example if this really happened in a real life situation?
Of course, Miss Christine. So, on the said date of January 24, 2022, adopted 3 measures granting amnesty to members of 3 rebel groups that have committed crimes punishable under the revised penal code and special penal laws in pursuit of their political beliefs.
Okay, and may we know the result of the said resolution in the Congress?
Yes, of course. It was sponsored by Senator Panfilio Ping Lacson, chairman of the Committee on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification. House concurrent resolution number was 12, 13, and 14, were adopted with 18 affirmative votes, 0 negative vote, and no abstention. So the resolutions concurred with the Presidential Proclamation number 1090, 1091, and 1092, signed by President Rodrigo Duterte on February 5, 2021, which grant amnesty to members.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Miss JM. And when I'm listening to you earlier, you have mentioned that there were groups or members that were granted amnesty by our president. Can you state or can you name the 3 members of the rebel groups that was granted amnesty?
Yes, of course, Miss Christine. It was first the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or the so-called MILF, Moro National Liberation Front, or the MNLF, and the Revolutionaryong Partido ng Manggagawa ng Pilipinas, Revolutionary Proletarian Army Alex Bongkayaw Brigade, or the RPMP, RPA, ABB.
Okay, thank you so much. So there were 3 of them that was granted amnesty. And with that being said, Miss JM, what was the amnesty grant that the government has given to the 3 rebel groups?
With the amnesty grants, the government is giving out second chances to over 7,600 prospective applicants who are willing to start a new life in a secure place in the society. However, there's still grounds and limitations to the amnesty.
Okay, and yeah, we know for a fact that amnesty or granting amnesty is not for everyone who committed a crime or was impeached, or in the cases of impeachment. So, Miss JM, can you tell us what are those limitations and grounds in granting amnesty?
Well, the amnesty shall not be granted to those who have already been prescribed or those who are charged under Republic Act number 9372, otherwise known as the Human Security Act of 2007, or the RA number 11479, or the so-called Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020. So particularly those people who violated the human rights, the human security, and people who committed murder, crime, rape, or kidnap for ransom, terrorism, and etc.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Miss J, and for that very informative presentation of what is the power of the president in granting amnesty. Thank you so much, Miss JM.
Thank you so much, Miss Christine.
And thank you so much, also, listeners. So, we were able to know that our government gives us second chances. So, but not everyone who will be giving, who will be deserving in this amnesty. So, stay tuned, listeners, because we will go on to our next topic, which is Article 7 in the Constitution, Section 20 up until 23. So we will be back in a short moment. And we are back, and thank you so much for our listeners who are still tuning in our episode for this first ever podcast in our group. So we are still on Article 7, which is the executive department. And for our next topic, we will be talking about Section 20, which is the president has the power to borrow money. And we are so lucky this afternoon, listeners, because we have here our guest, which is Miss 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿 Sumatra, who is the expert in explaining on the powers of the president in borrowing money. So, Miss 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Miss Christine. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome, Miss Honey. And we would like to extend our gratitude in giving us time in having this interactive discussion for our listeners to fully understand the Section 20 of Article 7. So let's just go straight to our topic. So can you elaborate us more what is stated in Article 7, Section 20?
For the Article 7, Section 20 of the Philippine Constitution, the President may borrow. This is the wants of the President. The President may contract or guarantee foreign laws on behalf of the Republic of the Philippines, which means the President can borrow abroad, but with a prior of the Monetary Board and subject such limitation as may be provided by the law.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. So under the said section, can you elaborate us more what is said in the Monetary Board?
Under Section 20, the Monetary Board shall within 30 days from the end of every quarter of the calendar year submit to the Congress a complete report of its decision and application for loans to be contracted or guaranteed by the government or government-owned and controlled corporation, which would have the effect of increasing of the foreign debt and continuation other matters as may be provided by the law.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer, Miss Honey. And I hope that our listeners really understood that. So here's the question, Miss Honey. I know that this question also, is very important in this section. So is it okay for the president to borrow money?
So let's go back to our former President Rodrigo Duterte, our beloved and favorite of all Filipinos. During speech delivered in Lapu-Lapu City on April 1, 2022, he stated that the Philippine government was forced to borrow money due to the lack of funding resources. Duterte emphasized the importance of government borrowing, saying that there was nothing wrong borrowing money as long as there is no irregularities in the government spending.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So, well, we were able to understand that there was nothing wrong in borrowing money. And Miss 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐿, can you give us an example wherein this section applies in a real life situation?
The best example with this is when the former President Rodrigo Duterte borrowed 100 billion in the World Bank when times of the pandemic. He said it is need for the public due to a millions of jobs wiped out by the global crisis. And health crisis must be put under control, most importantly, to help the frontliners and the affected of the said issue.
Okay, so during the past years, we are experiencing a global health crisis. I know that each one of us, some of us lost our jobs during the pandemic. So, and I am one of those that I lost my job as well during the pandemic. But we are so thankful that our government really helped us by giving us ayuda. And I know that that money came from the World Bank, which was our president borrowed 500 million US dollars that time. So, Miss Honey, one last question. Did the World Bank approve this one, and what was the reason behind it?
Yes, the World Bank has approved a 500 million US dollar loan to help the Philippines. The reason is they want to improve its disaster preparedness policies, planning, and investment for the public health emergencies at the national and local levels. These projects funding will also support urgent needs caused by the COVID-19 crisis.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Miss Honey, and thank you so much for your time in letting us understand that it is okay to borrow money, and it is okay to use this borrowed money if it is for our countries and for our Filipinos, or our citizens welfare. Thank you so much, Miss Honey.
Thank you, Miss Christine.
And listeners, stay tuned for our next topics. We still have section 21, 22, and 23. Thank you so much, and please stay right there.
The Constitution cannot protect us unless we protect the Constitution. This quote exemplifies that the realization of the core purpose of the Constitution does not lie on the hands of the Constitution per se, but more on humanity's hands. Good day, everyone. I am Prince Gherbert Truzan, and for this moment, we will be talking about Article 7, Section 21, and Section 22 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Article 7, Section 21 stated that no treaty or international agreement shall be valid and effective unless concurred in by at least two-thirds of all the members of the Senate. And in Section 22 entails that the President shall submit to the Congress within 30 days from the opening of every regular session as the basis of the General Appropriations Bill, a budget of expenditures and sources of the financing, includes receipts from existing and proposed revenue measures. It is very observable that the salient point on Section 21 is the fact that the President, being the head of the executive department, did not have an absolute power when it comes to decision making. As before putting our nation into a treaty or international agreement, he needs the approval of two-thirds of the Senate. Additionally, Section 22 ensures transparency when it comes to the executive department's finances. To put it simply, check and balance can be observed. And we must acknowledge that check and balance is much vital towards ensuring that the branch of the government that holds the highest power of the land will not abuse its power. On Section 21, it is the Senate. And on Section 22, we have the Congress, which are both part of the legislative body of the government that ensures check and balance is at hand. In terms of issue inclined with these specific sections of the Constitution, I believe that the Department of Education of the 2.4 billion worth of the outdated laptops through the procurement service of the Department of Budget and Management is the latest. Department of Education is under the umbrella of the Executive Department, during the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing on Thursday, August 25. The senators grilled the officials involved in the procurement, asking former DepEd Undersecretary Alan Pascua why he agreed to the new price pegged by the PSDBM, which was the 58,300 per unit. The approved budget for the contract was set only at 35,046.50 per unit. The difference between the prices was addition of 23,253.50 per unit. With these dynamics out of our Constitution, we can ensure that no one in the executive department abuses his or her power. But again, in order for the Constitution to protect, we must protect the Constitution.
Want a break from the ads? If you tap now to watch a short video, you'll receive 30 minutes of ad-free music.
And we are back for our last discussion for today. Section 23 of Article 7 of 1987 Constitution. We have here Miss Christine Allyssa Sarmiento. Can you please tell us more information about this section, please?
Yes, thank you so much, Elbert. And I would like to thank you as well for the invitation. It's really an honor and a privilege to be part of this podcast. So, Article 7, Section 23 states that the President shall address the Congress at the opening of its regular session. He may also appear before it at any other time. So it means that the President should be there before the opening of the regular session to address his message or his speech before any regular session of the Congress. So it also states here prerogative to address and appear before Congress. So the start of the regular session, this provision furnishes an opportunity on the part of the President at the opening of the regular session of Congress. Our listeners can also check Article 6, Section 15 to further understand on this one and for more information as well, to give information on the state of the nation and to recommend to the consideration of the legislative body such measures as he may deem necessary and proper.
You have mentioned state of the nation. Is this related to SONA?
Actually, yes, it is. We can consider State of the Nation as the SONA, which also stands for the State of the Nation Address, wherein the President will unveil the plans of the government for the coming year and also the measures. Such measures are, of course, merely proposals and they have no binding effect until enacted by the Congress. And the address may also contain guidelines of the national policy. And if you have seen the SONA of our present president right now, which is President Bongbong Marcos, which he unveils his plans on the country for the next 6 years. And the President may appear before Congress at any other time he may choose after opening of its regular session as well. So the President has the power to choose whatever time he wants when he's about to deliver his message or speech before opening and after opening the regular session of the Congress.
All right, there you go, listeners. Thank you so much, Miss Christine, for sharing those relevant information of today. Listeners, thank you for tuning in on our first ever episode of our podcast, Article 7, Sections 18 to 23.
So this has been Allyssa,
Elbert,
Honey.
JM, and Prince saying Thank you and goodbye.